If you're thinking about moving to the Sanford, Florida area, but you want to know what Sanford is really like, then you're in the right place today, because I'll be addressing some pros and some cons of Sanford, Florida. I've lived in the Orlando area for many years, so I've learned a few things that I never expected. So let's kick things off with the pro of Sanford, Florida, although it's a couple of cons a bit later that are really going to surprise you. First, let's start off with the restaurants. Sanford really has a good mix of mom and pop and chain type restaurants. We've got the Mellow Mushroom, we've got Cheddar's, Outback, and all the other chains. But there's a ton of other mom and pop types. There's the Cattle Ranch, Hollerbox, which is right here where I'm at today, Tennessee Truffle, the Old Jailhouse, the Current. I could really go on and on with all of the wonderful restaurants right here in a small area. Plus, there's all sorts of breweries and coffee shops, there's ice cream shops. There's a lot right here in this small area. Good variety. Not as much as Orlando, but look, we don't have the congestion or all the other mess that they have down in Orlando. Next, let's look at a con of Sanford, Florida, and that's the noise. Just listen right now. It's constant, and it's pretty early in the day. They're not even open for lunch yet, but you're hearing all sorts of trucks. There's different parts of Sanford. You're going to have I-4 to contend with. There's police and ambulance sirens seemingly 24/7. There's traffic. There's the Sanford International Airport and Orlando International Airport right close by. They're always buzzing over. There's tons of building and construction that seems to be constant. So while this area does kind of have a small town feel, it's really quite noisy. Next, let's talk about a pro of Sanford, Florida, and that's its location. Well, right here in Sanford, we're probably 30 minutes to Orlando proper, probably 45 minutes to Daytona Beach and the sands of New Smyrna Beach, which is my favorite beach. Probably 20 minutes out to the Wekiva River out on the edge of town, where there's wonderful kayaking and fishing, beautiful river. And then we have Lake Monroe and the St. Johns River, which is right here where we are today, which is a great place for fishing, for boating, for skiing. Well, they don't ski too much on this these days, but I've skied on it many times over the years. And we're probably 30 minutes to 60 or 70 degree crystal clear blue water of several different springs. I-4, 417, and the 429, which is the beltway around Orlando, are right here. Now, we know the Sanford area very well, so if you're moving to Sanford, we can help you. We can help you find the right home in the right location. We're your local eyes and ears right here, because this is where, well, it's where we eat, sleep, and we work. So next, let's talk about a con of Sanford, Florida, and that is the congestion. Well, look, the congestion is real. Now, as we're here today, it's early in the morning, there's not much traffic, but I can tell you, and it probably never builds up horribly right here, but this area, all of Sanford, Florida, has a horrible traffic problem, and it just seems like it's getting worse as we just grow throughout Central Florida here. That 30-minute ride I spoke about a minute ago to Orlando, that could be an hour, and it can be a frustrating one as you sit in the traffic. You want to go to Disney or the attractions? Well, it may be a 45-minute ride from here without the traffic, but 90 minutes with the traffic. And while Orlando may be that 30-minute ride, Orlando is kind of one gigantic glob. You know, there's several cities that I refer to as Orlando. You know, Castleberry, Altamont, Longwood, and Sanford. We all kind of grow into it. But another thing about that traffic is that you don't really know when that traffic is going to strike, because I've headed down to Sanford at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and wham, I am stopped on I-4. So you don't really know when it is, but it's probably going to happen. Now, I often deal with the traffic by taking the toll roads, the beltway that I mentioned before, or even I-4's express lanes, which they put in here in the last couple years. But those tolls can get mighty expensive. Last month, I spent over $100. Now, when I looked at my bill, I was blown away, because I don't know how I did it, because I spend most of my time up on the north side of Orlando, and although I do go down there quite a bit, I never dreamed it was going to be $100. The next pro of living in Sanford, Florida is that Sanford has one of the best downtown areas in the entire Orlando area for several reasons. First off, Sanford is a very dog-friendly downtown area. There are numerous restaurants and eateries that have outdoor seating, and oftentimes they'll have water bowls out for your dog, which in the summer heat can be a big deal. There's a small town feel right here that's very, very desirable, and not one that you'd think of given the overall size of Sanford as a whole. The revitalization efforts here in downtown Sanford have been really a game changer. The area that I'm walking in right now is an area that 20 years ago just was not a safe place to be. Downtown here, they have all sorts of events. They have Porch Fest. They have these couch races that are pretty cool. They have film festivals. They have the Live After 5, which is a event they do in the evenings. They have the Food Truck Fiesta, the Pints and Paws, Oktoberfest, Farmers Market. Look, I can go on and on. The point is, there's a lot of activity here in this downtown area. And when you go out, my wife and I love to come down here in the evenings, and what we find is that there's always live music. It just seems like Sanford, more than any of the other downtown areas, has much more live music than we find in other places, and we really appreciate that. And now Sanford is reachable to the Sunrail, or reachable via the Sunrail if you're coming up from Orlando or coming down from DeLand or DeBerry. So it's pretty easy. Now you do have to take a shuttle to get here to it, but it is a good option for you. A con of Sanford, Florida is the flooding. Now it's not all of Sanford, but the downtown area, a couple of years back, we had a hurricane. I don't know if it was Ian or Nicole or which hurricane it was, but downtown Sanford was absolutely flooded. Now, some areas of Sanford are flood prone, but not all of it. If you want to ensure when you move here that you don't end up in an area that's prone to flooding, simply give us a call, because we're familiar with the area and we can help you find an area that is not prone to flooding. Next, let's look at a con. And that con is that Sanford is not walkable outside of the downtown area. Now, downtown here, very walkable, okay? But the rest of Sanford, you're going to need a car to get around. You're going to need a bus if you don't have a vehicle. You're going to need that shuttle that I spoke of, maybe an Uber or a taxi. Bicycles are good. They're really good in this area. But as a whole, Sanford is not really a bike-friendly place in some areas. The arts are a definite pro of being here in Sanford, Florida. There's an abundance of public art throughout the downtown area. There's these really cool sculptures, there's some painted murals, and even some of the utility boxes are wrapped in paint by local artists from throughout the Orlando area. There's the Janine Taylor Folk Art Gallery, there's the gallery on First, there is the Ritz Theater, which is where I'm at. Fantastic little theater. They have the Love Your Shorts Film Festival here. The West End Theater has some fantastic plays. And the Sanford Art and Jazz Night, they do throughout Sanford, which is a fantastic way to really just enjoy a little culture, a little nightlife that they do have here in Sanford. The next one is really a pro and a con of moving to Sanford, Florida, and that is Sanford International Airport. The pro side of it, it's easy to get to Sanford International Airport. You don't have all the circular drives that you do in Orlando International Airport when you're already angry by the time you find a parking spot, and then you're paying $30 a day to park. Now, I don't know exactly what that is, but for me, it's crazy. Keeping with the expense thing, Sanford International Airport is very inexpensive. I'm flying out of Michigan tomorrow, and I think I'm spending less than $200 for a round trip ticket, which to me is very nice. The con side of Sanford International Airport is the noise. Now, it's an international airport, so everybody's flying in. It's not as big as Orlando International Airport, but the noise is seemingly just the same. Much of the area where the airport is new construction, although there's for many years been all sorts of older homes there too. So there's a lot of noise that people just don't like with Sanford International Airport. Next, let's talk about a con, at least according to niche.com, and that is crime. Niche.com says that Sanford is a grade of a C, which is very undesirable, especially when Sanford's neighbor to the west, Lake Mary, has a B grade. Now, it's much more expensive to live over there in Lake Mary, but there is kind of a different feel. My wife and I love coming to the downtown Sanford area, but with a C grade, I don't really know how confident I feel about the safety in all of Sanford. You know, there's plenty of new construction around Sanford, but some of Sanford is much, much older. Sanford has a rich history, but being so old, some of it is a bit, I don't know, should I say run down? And that kind of makes some people worry if it's as safe or not. So the same niche.com that absolutely blasted Sanford for having a C grade for a crime gives an A- for schools, making schools a definite pro for Sanford, Florida. Now, I don't have children in the Seminole County school system, but I have several customers that have bought homes and that live here in Seminole County, and they absolutely love the schools throughout Seminole County. Next, let's talk about the con of panhandling and homeless people. It just seems to be increasingly common in some areas of Sanford. Now, the Homeless Services Network of Central Florida says that there's a 3.8% increase of homelessness here in Central Florida in this year alone. Plus, it says there's a 156% increase in Central Florida, which is the greater Orlando area, in the last 3 years. Now, I'm told that Sanford is the only city in Seminole County with a shelter. Now, I don't know if that means that there are more of them or not. I know there are other organizations out there that help deal with the homeless problem, but there's only one shelter per se, and I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but what it tells me is that there's plenty of homeless people here. The next pro of living in Sanford, Florida is the parks and outdoor recreation areas. There are so many here. Riverwalk is right over here on Lake Monroe. We did another clip over there earlier, and it's a wonderful place just to go and to hang out, to walk, maybe to ride a bike or a one-wheel or whatever. It's just a wonderful place to kind of hang out right on Lake Monroe, which is part of the St. Johns River, which flows all the way from, let's see, it flows up. So it flows from Sebastian all the way up to Jacksonville. So it's a pretty cool, pretty important place. And historically, this area right here was a big deal as well for Sanford and for all of the entire area. This is Fort Mellon Park. There's a splash pad here, of course, basketball courts. Centennial Park is another one. There's numerous parks throughout the area here. There's the Black Bear Wilderness area out on the west side of town, which is a great place for hiking. There's cycling trails right here. Now, I mentioned earlier that cycling is not big in Sanford, but there are some areas like right here, and you can connect trails that will take you down to Winter Park or over to each coast. So really some fantastic cycling from right here in this area. Next, let's talk about a con, and that is pests. Pests, P-E-S-T-S. There's not any way to say that this is good about Sanford, Florida. Sanford has a lot of bats, especially because here in this area, we have a lot of historical homes. Now, we love bats eating our bugs, but we don't like them when they're living in our attics. In the summer, you cannot remove them because of breeding season. It's kind of weird, but that's the way they do it. Next, here in Sanford, they have these midges, these little blind mosquito bugs, at least that's what we call them, and they will swarm really bad. They'll come out at dusk in the warmer months, and they'll swarm, 2 or 3 times. It can be pretty horrible. We've got all sorts of cockroaches, some that can be great big ones. We've got spiders that can be even bigger than that. We've got snakes. We've got all kinds of ugly things. We have tropical weather here. As I'm here right now, it's mid-90s and it's humid, and so these critters, they love it. We've got termites, especially here in the Sanford area, again, primarily because of these older homes. They will live in a home and then they will pack up and they will just fly to another home and kind of spread. We have alligators here in Lake Monroe. There's a lot of them here, but not like there are down in Lake Jessup where you can practically walk on alligators. Now, in reality, alligators, they're not chasing us around like people think, but they're still a reality. And I have water skied in this lake right here in Lake Monroe many years ago, but I don't know that I'd feel so comfortable doing that today. In Volusia County, it's known as, we have some of the most popular beaches for this area. New Smyrna is the shark bite capital of the world, and it's like 50% of the shark bites in the entire world happen right in New Smyrna Beach. So sharks are a real thing. Now, it's not like us locals pay much mind to these things because the odds of something like that actually happening are so slim. But when people call us and they're relocating to Sanford, Florida, whether they're coming from California or Iowa, Michigan, or New York, oftentimes they're saying, look, I know, Chuck, that you tell me there's no alligators in this area, but in the ponds, but Chuck, we don't want to be anywhere near any lakes, so we can help you find these areas. Before we get to the one con that most people really get wrong about Sanford, Florida, let's talk about housing, which I'm calling a definite pro. Here in Sanford, there's a wide variety of housing options. There's all sorts of inexpensive homes throughout the central part, and actually much of Sanford. There's a good bit of historical homes, which is where we are now, here around the downtown area. There's tons and tons of new construction. Now, most of that new construction nowadays is down around the airport area. West of I-4, there's all sorts of luxury homes. There's Lake Forest, there's Buckingham Estates, Lake Markham Landings, and Bella Foresta. Really, I could go on and on, but if you want a nice home, there's plenty, most of which are on the west side of I-4. The cost of housing has risen quite a bit here in recent years, and look, as I record this today, we're probably around the national average for home prices, which is a good thing. However, we used to be thought of Florida as an inexpensive place to live, but now we're kind of pushing up against that national average. So whether you're looking for an inexpensive older home, maybe an old ranch, maybe you want a condo, maybe you want new construction, or you want a $2 million estate home, just give us a shout, because we've been selling in and around the Sanford area, throughout the Orlando area for many years, and we love to help. Next, let's talk about the biggest con that I think nobody knows about outside of the state of Florida, and that is the heat. Now, yes, here in Florida, our winters are absolutely gorgeous. There's hardly any humidity, highs in the 70s and 80s, and lows, although we will get some freezing, our lows are usually pretty comfortable. But in the summers, it can be absolutely miserable here. We have oppressive heat and oppressive humidity. Today, we're looking at 97 degrees. So as I got ready today, and I started getting ready to come film this video, and I'm getting my clothes together, I said, I am not wearing shorts. I am not wearing pants, rather, because I know what's coming. Boy, listen to those cicadas. The cicadas love the heat, and it seems like they get worse when it's super, super hot, which it is right now. So we have these afternoon thunderstorms, and they don't, although the afternoon thunderstorms do help with the temperature, they don't help with the humidity. So a thunderstorm can roll on through, drop some rain, and it can feel just as sticky and ugly as it did before that thunderstorm came. Now, yes, almost everybody here in the Sanford area has air conditioning, and just about everybody has swimming pools. But look, don't believe for a minute that it's nice here in the Sanford area from probably June through August, because it's not. It's gross. Now, up north, you have the snow, you have the ice, you have all that coldness. We don't have that here, but for probably 9 months a year, it's nice. But for those 3 months, June, July, and August, it's not nice here. The flip side is the cold, because in the winters, it will freeze here a few times. Now, it can freeze 3 or 4 times. Some years we'll have none. This last year we had a hard freeze. I lost a lot of my landscaping. It was a real thing, especially if you get inland. If you go inland, there can be a 2 to 4 degree difference just on the outskirts of Sanford, maybe over in Sorrento or Mount Dora. It can definitely be 2 or 4 degree difference. Now again, we don't have the snow, we don't have the ice, but look, it can get cold. Hey, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.